What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Inside D3 Show. I'm your host, Morgan Cheatham, back with a brand new intro for you guys. If you're one of our new viewers, then thank you for checking us out for the first time. If you're one of our day one viewers, then we appreciate you for sticking around since the beginning. So before we get started today, make sure you check us out on our website, InsideD3.com. Follow us on our Instagram and Twitter at D3Inside. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Inside D3 Athletics, where you can find all of our episodes as well. If you happen to be on the go and can't watch our videos, you can listen to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Anchor. Also, be sure to check out the Mascot of the Week with Sam and any news that might drop in the meantime as well. And we got some good stuff planned for you guys for the summer, so we're definitely looking forward to that as well. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys, so hopefully you enjoy the show. So we have James Wagner in the building today. He's the Assistant Commissioner of the Colonial States Athletic Conference, or the CSAC. So, James, thank you for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
Good, Morgan. Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to talk first about, your background. Obviously, you've had an extensive background in athletics. So tell me, where did that stem from and, from beginning to end, how you got to this point.
Well, so in high school, I could play athletics. I did play football, played basketball, swam for a year, did track. Ended up going to college, was not going to be a collegiate student athlete. Got involved with the campus radio station, which was pretty powerful. I went to school at Susquehanna. So they did football, basketball. Worked in the sports information office all 4 years as my work study. That's how I got involved in athletics. And then when I got out of college, ended up being an SID at Albright College for about a year. Took a little bit of a break to do some newspaper stuff, hone in my writing, and then since 2004, I've been in intercollegiate athletics. I was an SID at Wagner, 2 years at Holy Family, with Division II school in Philadelphia, then 9 years actually at Ursinus, and then took a little bit of a break again, and then came to be the assistant commissioner in 2016. I've been here ever since. It's now starting my 5th year. So I progressively went up the ladder with different responsibilities, and I wanted to stay in collegiate athletics because I really enjoyed it. And also I wanted to stay in higher education. So it's been a good mix of experience, but my current job allows me to stay in that role and while having more responsibilities on the conference level.
Gotcha. So talk about what was that transition like coming from, being an SID for so many years and then, jumping into an assistant commissioner role is obviously, a lot to handle. So what was that like, especially being in such a small staff like the CSAC?
It was pretty interesting. I had been an SID for about 15 years, and then when you get out and you become the conference SID, you're not only working for one school, you're working for, at that time we had 12. Now we're back to 11. You were submitting players a week, and now you're picking them. And you were also helping run championship events, which you had done at the past before, trying to present a good experience for the student athletes. But at that point, when you come into the conference office, you're working with the institution because they're running your championship event and making sure everything's okay, making sure that officials and game programs and stuff like that. So having that role was a little bit different, was from seeing it from another end, and also working with athletic directors, presidents, vice presidents. You're working with every coaching staff in the conference. You're working with 12 different schools at the time that have 12 different ideas. You have a common background with the conference, but you're doing Players of the Week. You're trying to promote the conference. You're helping your schools and their student athletes get promoted on a national level. So the transition, while at the beginning it was a little tough because you're going from doing, the bulk of your work on a Monday, and then the rest of the week you're fine, whereas in the SID world, you're doing stuff Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I always say my conference life ends at 5 o'clock because there's no game to cover. Before, when I was doing events at Ursinus, I'd show up 2 hours before, setting things up. I don't do that now. I show up a half hour before the event starts to make sure everything is okay. The officials are there. Both teams are there. Everybody's ready to go. Championship is over. I hand out the plaque. I go back. I do the automatic qualifier form, and then I'm done. So, the time constraint for being assistant commissioner, it varies during the week because Monday's your busy day with reporting and national stuff. And then when you're in championship time and doing all conference things, you're doing a lot more. Whereas your conference, SID on a campus, you have events to cover. That's the only thing that's different is I don't have events to cover. I do go to events from time to time. I try to go to one event with each school throughout the semester during this. So if I go see Keystone and Centenary play field hockey, it might be at Centenary, or I go see Keystone and Clark Summit play volleyball, I'll go to Keystone. I try to visit every campus once in a while. I didn't do that on the SID role when I was at Ursinus or Holy Family. So it took a while to get used to it. Once I get used to it, you find yourself with a little bit more time, but your responsibilities are greater. Like during the year when we have meetings, I do the minutes. I'm doing coaches meetings. I'm doing our all conference, making sure coaches can vote, make sure they nominate at the proper time. The way we do our all conference awards is that we do the major awards, player of the year, defensive player of the year, if we have it in that sport, rookie of the year, and any ties on a conference call after we voted. So getting them all together and giving the information that they need, that's when the busy thing comes, because in our bylaws, all conference teams have to be out before the first playoff game. And a lot in the fall, they overlap because we have a 6-team or a 5-team playoff. 6 teams if it's over 50%, depending upon what the sport is. So it could be that first Monday and we're doing all our calls on a Sunday. So the transition took a little bit of getting used to, but by about the second year, I got a handle on it. So now I've got a nice system to do that. So it's gone pretty well.
So talk a little bit about, I know you guys are, adding a couple of different teams into, the conference, whether it's just for one sport or, a couple. Talk about that process, and, is that exciting for you to see some new teams added?
It is, and it's a very lengthy process. So a couple of years ago, I think people who probably watch this know that we lost 5 of our members. They went and formed the Atlantic East, and at that time, we noticed we had deficits in certain sports. Now, the magic number is 7 for an AQ. You can go down to 4 core members in a certain sport. However, you have 2 years to get back to 7. So what we did is we went out and we got 2 new members right off the bat in Bryn Athyn and Wilson College. College of St. Elizabeth then followed afterwards in 2019, 2020. We just added the University of Valley Forge. I just became a member 2 days ago. In fact, I'm going to do a story today. I do Friday features. Doing a feature about Valley Forge, and what you may not know is that the University of Valley Forge, which was Valley Forge Christian College, the land that they are on was a former military hospital in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. If you've ever been there, it looks like a hospital. It's because it was an Army hospital started in World War II. In fact, there's going to be a piece in my story, a quick note that the actor Gene Wilder, who was Willy Wonka, actually started off in the Army there. He was a technician in I think he was in the psychiatry department. So that's going to be in my story. So each college had this unique background. So when a college comes to us and says, we want to join the CSAC, we look at it 2 ways. Do they do they help us in certain sports? And do they fit our needs, fit our background? We're small Catholic colleges. We're not going to put a 20,000 student Division III school as a core member because it's not a level playing field. And there's a lengthy process involved where there's an application. Our athletic directors think, okay, this is how we want to pursue. We then go on a site visit and we look around at the facilities and we talk to the coaches, we talk to the administrators, like, why do you want to join? It's a 2-way street. Why do you want to join the CSAC? And we tell them why they would be a good fit. Obviously, we're not going to put somebody way out of our footprint that's far away. We're going to make sure that it's a comfortable driving distance to go to events. When that is done, if the feedback is positive, then our presidents make the decision. And the presidents are allowed to ask questions. Usually the last one we did, Valley Forge's president came on, Dr. Kim did a phenomenal job answering questions. And then it's done by secret vote. And once you're accepted, you pay your membership bond, you pay your membership dues, and you are a full-fledged member of the CSAC. I will tell you the 4 schools that we have added in the last 3 years, as far as core members, have been great additions to our conference. Last year, 2 years ago, when I believe it was 2 years ago, when we had our fall playoffs, every school had at least 1 team in a team playoff, which was fantastic. Adding the College of St. Elizabeth, which is now St. Elizabeth University, last year was great. Now adding Valley Forge, so we're back to 11. Obviously, we want to get to an even number, but having 11 people in your conference is great. All our schools work together. It's great. And especially in this age of COVID-19, and we'll talk about that later about what we're doing to get everything ready to play. It's been great. We have associate members in different sports to help us out to get to 7. We have Lancaster Bible and field hockey. They've been a great addition. In men's lacrosse, we have the 3 NJAC schools, Kane, Montclair, and Stockton. And last year, not 2020, but 2019, I was doing the men's lacrosse championship between Stockton and Montclair at Stockton. And for those who know the history of the CSAC, we had Cabrini, and Cabrini had won the championship the last 19 years. So to have 2 new teams to win a championship, I mean, was the best game I had seen in a while. Cabrini, obviously, Dynamite program. Steve Colford does a fantastic job. He's one of my favorite coaches of all time. I miss him in my conference. Steve was awesome. I was so happy when they won the national championship. In track and field, we have Penn State Barron. We have Alfred State, who we added 2 years ago. We had Franciscan until they joined the PAC. And this year we're adding Gallaudet University as a associate member in track and field. The bottom line, Morgan, is that we want to give student athletes a chance to compete for a championship. And we want the student athletes to have the experience. Now, in track, there's no automatic qualifier you can get in on time. But we want to give a chance for the student athletes to have access to that NCAA tournament. And in field hockey and in men's lacrosse, we had Stockton come in a couple of years ago. They won our championship. They won a first-round game, in a year when big conferences didn't win a first-round game. And they beat Morrisville, and they gave York a run for its money, and that's what we want. We want strong programs. And we don't want a program to come in and be a powerhouse. And, the 3 NJAC schools are bigger schools compared to the other schools we have in men's lacrosse. However, the games are competitive. Kane University, Kane is in the conference, but Cairn University and Langhorne is adding men's lacrosse this year. So there'll be 8 schools now we have in men's lacrosse, and they're adding women's lacrosse. And Cairn is a very good program run by Jay Butler, who's a great athletic director. All our athletic directors are great. And these schools that we've added, and also the ones that stayed, have upped their athletic programs by saying, what do we need to do to make the conference better? And they've added programs over the last couple of years. So it is a lengthy process. For the first time in a while, we're not worried about membership. Our membership is secure. If a 12 school comes along and wants to join, they'll go through the process. But, in the Mid-Atlantic region, every 10 years there's a shift. And you just saw this year with York leaving to go to the MAC, the Capital absorbing the schools in the ACAA, one of which Valley Forge was a member, which is now our member of our conference. You have the Landmark, you have the NEAC, you also have the NJAC and the Skyline. So you have a lot of different conferences in the Mid-Atlantic region. There's always a shift. So I wouldn't be surprised 10 years from now if there's another movement. But we're happy with the members that we have. They are all great institutions, and they've worked together, especially in this age of COVID-19.
Definitely. So I want to switch gears a little bit right now. I know you did an interview with Ivy Watts, which was she was just amazing. When I talked to her, we did a quick little interview like a couple months ago, and just talking about student athlete mental health. So I want to know from your interview with her, what were some of the things that you took from it?
Sure. So I make it no bones about it. I struggle with mental health. I have struggled with mental health in the past, and to the point where 2 years ago, I spent a week in a medical hospital for anxiety, depression, stuff like that. So that is always the forefront of my mind. That is something that in the last 5 years has been something that's been important to our student athletes, in my mind. It's the fact that, okay, they're going on trips, they're traveling, then they've got to come back and do their schoolwork. I remember when we were adding Bryn Athyn, and on their site visit, Bryn Athyn was in the NEC, and we're taking trips to Buffalo, Northern New York, DC. Those are long trips on student athletes, 7-8 hours on a bus. And some of these schools are very strict academically. And not only the fact that you have kids are maybe away from home for the first time, they're trying to get used to a schedule, whether it's classes, then going to practice and coming back, making sure they're eating right. And that's something that we've concentrated on the last couple of years with our Tier 2 funding. We had Dr. Joel Fish come in to talk about the psychology of sport. Ivy was fantastic. I met Ivy in Anaheim in January at the NCAA convention. It seems so very long ago we could actually do things. So I got to talk to her for a while, and she struck me told me what she had gone through. And, when COVID-19 hit, we had all kinds of not issues, but it was a lot for everybody. You know, you were quarantined, you weren't on campus, you were going through learning online, you were going through certain states that you couldn't go outside, you had to wear a mask all the time. So when I talked to Ivy, and Ivy gave these, you know, if it sticks with one student athlete or two, that's great. And just to let the student athletes know that we care about them and we understand what they're going through. You know, obviously this new norm, like it's July 3rd and we're still wearing a mask. Like I went to, my kids are down in Ocean City with their grandparents, and on the boardwalk, no one's wearing masks. And it's a norm, like, oh, you know, I go somewhere, I go to Target, like I got to bring my mask. It's new norm, and being 6 feet apart. I actually suffered a minor heart attack in May. I did. And, you know, you get you thinking, like, not only am I worried about my mental health, but my physical health. But talking with Ivy, I mean, she was amazing. She's great. And she's going to be a good resource for our student athletes. We're going to try to get her, you know, if we can get her into the mix with Tier 2 funding, you know, a program the next couple of years, I would more than love to bring her on campus. And we always say, look, if you want to bring someone like Ivy on your campus and we can provide you the grant funding, we will do that. The important thing is to help our student athletes with their health and well-being, whether it's physical or mental. And I know Ivy, talking to her and doing an interview, I think was great, because that allowed our student athletes to kind of think, hey, I know I'm not going through this alone. These are some of the things that I can do to help.
Absolutely. Big shout outs to Ivy. I think she's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about social media. You know,
Yeah.
obviously you have an SID background, like I said, and, you know, I've seen your Twitter. It's pretty hilarious. So I want to know, you know, what's the importance of social media within the athletics realm for you?
It's big now. And I you know, being in called the old school SID, when we still had hotlines to update and we didn't do Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I mean, it's huge now. When I put a post up on Instagram, it's linked to my phone. So, you know, I'll get the notifications that people like it. So when we do something really cool, we try to be more conscious, not more kind, more interactive on social media during the COVID-19 outbreak, because I think that's where everybody was going. So we do Tuesday trivia, we do way back Wednesday, we would do what we could, do little vignettes here and there. It's very important because I believe that, you know, and I do these Friday features that no one really reads anymore. And it's a shame, because I kind of honed my craft a little bit by doing writing when I was in newspaper, and I worked in radio for 10 years. And, you know, you're not seeing your writing, you're just doing it phonetically. So you can kind of, not paragraphs or anything like that. But it's important. And having a good social media presence is key, because you want to keep your fans engaged. You know, why should a student athlete go to a school that's in the CSAC? What makes the CSAC stand out from the Landmark, the MAC, the Centennial? What makes us different, and highlight what our student athletes are doing? And it's big. And especially in the age of what we're going through, when there's more on social media, a tweet can carry a lot of weight. Obviously, with everything that's going on around the country, you want to have a good impact statement and do it on social media, because you get one chance to do it. So it's very important. I find myself getting better at Photoshop and getting, you know, on my Twitter followers for the conference, and just basically trying to amplify a school's message, because they may put something out on Twitter and then we can amplify it from a conference standpoint. That just helps promote our student athletes' accomplishments.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. It's really like the first impression almost nowadays. You know, for people to do their research, the first thing they'll look at now is their social media pages. So it's definitely important to stay connected on those.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got another question for you. I just want to know, you know, obviously with the virus and everything, and, you know, we talked a little bit about, we're seeing a lot of teams start rolling out planning for the fall. So I want to know a little bit of what's going on the CSAC side of things.
Sure. So we have a game day task force, you know, with the ADs and athletic trainers. The bottom line, Morgan, is we want our student athletes to play, but we've got to do it safely. We've got to make sure that we minimize risk for them, our coaches, you know, our staffs, and everything else. The 11 schools, we've been meeting weekly as ADs to talk about what we want to do. Do we want to play conference games only? Do we want to allow for non-conference competition? Every conference is going through this right now. And you're seeing some institutions that are deciding I'm not going to take the risk. And that's fine. That is well enough good. If you feel you want to keep your student athletes safe and your student population in general safe, then that is fine. And we've said that too. If you don't feel comfortable playing and you want to wait till the winter, that's fine. So we are working on a task force with different protocols. I myself, from an SID standpoint, I just sent a note out to my SID saying, okay, social distancing policies for your staffs. How are you going to start a volleyball game indoors? How are you going to start a soccer game indoors? There are all kinds of things. What are we going to do with photographers? We have different protocols in place for our student athletes, that there's going to be testing involved. There's going to be, even with our referees, in soccer, in volleyball, hopefully this doesn't trail into the winter. It could. But how do we provide our student athletes with an outstanding experience and at the same time limit risk? I'll be perfectly honest with you. There is not a campus in this country that is going to have a zero infection rate. It is going to happen. You're going to have one or two students on campus, or maybe, hopefully they're not student athletes, but they could be. It's how you're going to manage it. A Johns Hopkins doctor read an opinion piece in the Washington Post and saying, look, this is how this is going to happen. It's how you deal with it after it happens. And we have protocols in place that we're working on. If, let's say, one of our institutions is scheduled to play another, they call them 2 days before, say, look, Johnny Smith has come down with COVID-19. We can't come. What do we do about that contest? How long are they going to be out? Is the player isolated? This unraveled so fast. I mean, I remember sitting at my desk on March 13th. We had just had an emergency president's meeting where we suspended our activity for 2 weeks, and we're thinking, okay, 2 weeks, we'll be back in April. No, we were done in 2 weeks. Watching the Big East tournament with no fans in MSG, the game starting and then ending at halftime. If you remember, in Division III, we had the wrestling tournament ready to go in Iowa. They were about to start. We had basketball teams all over the country for the Division III tournament. In fact, Swarthmore was hosting Whitworth out of Washington. They had just flown in from Seattle. We had Yeshiva all the way down in Randolph-Macon, I believe. And the tournaments were canceled that day, with the NCAA just saying, look, we can't safely put on spring championships or winter championships. Everybody go home. I remember the week before, when Yeshiva was at the Johns Hopkins Regional, watching a gym with no fans in it, when it was them, WPI, Penn State Harrisburg, and Hopkins in a pod by ourselves. Amherst doing the same thing, and thinking, are they going overboard? And turns out they were right. 100% right. 100% right. It's, this thing happened so fast, and the outbreak depends what state you're in. I know in Pennsylvania, we were all red, and then we were all yellow, and we were all green, and now Philadelphia is not going into the green until August. And I just came back from a trip to Boston. I did travel. Boston's the same way. Boston has indoor dining, but you wear your mask everywhere. And I'm in Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market, on a Saturday in June, and there's nobody around. Same thing with intercollegiate athletics. What are we going to do with fans? What are we going to do with referees? So we have a whole list of things we're going to talk about, put in practice. When the ADs are okay with it, then it goes to the presidents, and the presidents make the final call. And if they are all in favor of doing this, because obviously they're the ones at the top of every institution, they're the one responsible for their students and their student athletes' well-being. Once they okay it, then we're going to go. And we're going to do what we can to provide a quality student athlete experience. I can tell you, if there's another outbreak and it gets worse, then you may not see sports until January. We don't have football, but one of our schools does, Keystone does. So, seeing the protocols from that end, they're in a different conference, obviously bringing your student athletes back 28 days before the first competition, like the NCAA recommends, that pushes your start date back into September. So it's going to be a lot, and it's a lot, not it's on the fly, but it's, okay, these are the protocols in place. What do we do if there's an outbreak on one campus? So I think that our athletic directors and my boss, Adrienne Mulliken, who's an outstanding commissioner, she's done a fantastic job, as of all the commissioners. They all talk to each other, figuring out what is the best way to provide a great student athlete experience, at the same time making sure our student athletes and our campuses and our referees and our student staffs are safe. That is the important thing. And we will know in the next week or so what our plan is, and we will go from there. Once we have the plan in place, then we can start to, fine tune our schedules, talk about championships, whether we want to let everybody in our championship, we want to stay with 50%, making sure that our schools meet the minimums, because that is important. And the NCAA has been very flexible, whereas if a school doesn't meet the sport minimums, which have been slashed, you can apply for a waiver relief, and most likely you're probably going to get it. It's going to be tricky in the sports of cross country and golf, because in cross country you go to meets, you go to invitationals, and here in Pennsylvania the sport gatherings are limited to 250 people in green areas. So how many teams can you bring in? And we're going to work on that to provide, again, I'll keep hampering it. The bottom line is the best experience for our student athletes. That's what we want to do. We want to do it safely. So the next week or so, you'll see what we're planning on doing. I know we worked very hard on this with our athletic directors and our task force and getting it to the presidents. And the CSAC is committed to safe athletic activity in 2021, and we're going to do it safely.
We definitely wish for the safety of you guys, and hopefully, everything works out the way it should. And, hopefully we can get back to play as soon as we can. That's definitely good.
I will tell you this. The thing that I'm hearing the most is there has to be in underlines and in capital letters, a Division I tournament in 2021, because that funds the entire NCAA. And we took a massive hit this year, a massive hit. Division III was able to figure things out, which was great. I mean, there were some things that got cut that unfortunately, and I say this to our ADs, and I say this to our student athletes, because I do get questions. This is just 1 year. Hopefully just 1 year. Hopefully there's a vaccine by December and it works. And then we can slowly ramp ourselves back up to normal. It just spiraled, it just unraveled so quickly, because we didn't know about COVID-19. I've been tested twice and I've been negative. It's scary. I mean, when I was in the hospital for my heart attack, I was in the ICU one day for the first day when they put the stent in. I was the only one in ICU not on a ventilator. Everybody else was on a ventilator. And this was like a 15-room ICU at a major hospital in Philadelphia. Being in a hospital during COVID-19 is a kind of interesting time, because no one can visit you. There's no movement in the hospital. And I remember I was discharged after 2 days, and my mom came and got me was going home to convalesce. And this hospital has a big atrium, and it is dead silent, nothing. So they're going to try to get a vaccine for this, and when it works out, that's great. We can eventually go back to new normal, or whatever the new normal is. But for right now, we are doing the best that we can with the limits that COVID-19 has put on us. We want to keep people safe, because this virus is deadly. This virus is ugly. You see the outbreaks now in the South and in the West, and Pennsylvania's been doing pretty good. And New Jersey's been doing pretty good, but we're almost there. We get the vaccine, we're fine. And eventually we'll return to normal. And, I tell student athletes, we're trying to get you to play. If it's conference only, I'm sorry you can't play a non-conference game, but the alternative is you don't play at all. And yeah, you can get your year back, but are you going to pay for a fifth year of school if you're a senior? So I think we're doing the best we can, and we're going to give everybody a good experience. We really will.
So my last question for you, this moment will probably be pretty easy for you to answer. It's why Division III? What was the reason that you chose it?
Because I love love Division III. It's where I went to school at Susquehanna. That's where, we were as a school. I had great experiences, and I've always loved Division III, and especially in the last couple of years. Seeing schools when we had our massive membership change, seeing schools that have never won a championship before, the joy of them hoisting that plaque, going to the tournament for the first time. I can remember the first year of basketball, second year this year, we had a championship game. It was Cairn and Centenary. And Centenary was the number 1 seed. Cairn ended up winning the game. And Cairn's head coach, Jason O'Connell, his wife, Christina, was the women's soccer coach, and she won her first CSAC title in the fall. So that's things you don't see in Division, you don't see, kind of unique to Division III a little bit. I got to do the swimming championships for the Landmark this year with our PA announcer. Provided a great experience. The student athletes are awesome. I love swimming championships. I'm sure my boss would love to have a swimming championship in our conference. That was her sport. She went to Hollins and Virginia, and that's a fun championship. But to see the joy of a student athlete win a championship, and I've worked Division I tournaments. I've worked the March Madness. I used to work the Atlantic 10 basketball tournament and it was great. But to see a student athlete work very hard, win a championship or win a major award. I can remember last year in women's tennis, or women's tennis player of the year, her stepdad and I used to work together in newspaper. So she knew me from knowing that I knew her stepdad, and I was able to tell Devin, like, here's your plaque. You're the player of the year. Congratulations. I was the first one to tell her, and that was really cool. So there's a lot of great experiences in Division III. I love all collegiate sports, even Division II I had a good time with. When I was a Holy Family, I got to go to Hawaii twice, which is a great place to visit. I went to Hilo, Hawaii. And if you want to get away from everything, go to Hilo, because at night you can see every star in the sky. And Hawaii is fun because you're there, like you're in Hawaii, and you can't like here I could drive to New Mexico, and Texas if I wanted to. Hawaii, you can't drive anywhere. When you're on one island, unless you're going by boat or by plane, you're on that island. I've been to Honolulu. I've seen the USS Arizona. Went to Pearl Harbor. Was on the Missouri. Saw the big military cemetery. Had great experiences, but my best experiences have been in Division III and seeing student athletes win championships. When I was at Susquehanna, we won a couple MAC football championships. Got to see my friends win championships, so it was fun. So I do enjoy Division III. It's my favorite division, and even the administrative people that I work with at the NCAA, the commissioners I know, the Luis and Dan Dutcher, those people, all the people I work with Division III. I got to serve on a couple of committees. I've run championships for Division III volleyball. I got to work men's volleyball last year. That was a lot of fun. So it is the best division, I think, in my mind, and I enjoy working in it. And I've had a chance to go to Division I, and I'm going to stay in Division III till my career is over.
Sounds like a plan. So, James, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. We definitely appreciate it. Best of luck to you in the coming season and all the, craziness that happens with it. But we definitely wish you the best.
Thanks, Morgan. Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely. So that does it for another episode of the Inside D3 Show. Thank you guys again for checking in. Stay tuned for more episodes. We drop them every Wednesday on all of our platforms. Also, stay connected on all of our platforms for any stories that might drop during the week as well. And also stay locked in for the Mascot of the Week with Sam V-Rock right after this, and you do not want to miss that. So, once again, I'm Morgan Cheatham. This is the Inside D3 Show, and we are signing off.